it's Kelly and welcome back to Room 9 3/4. Today we are going to be talking about splints. So throughout this video series, we'll be talking about all the splints that you would be responsible for as a tech in the department. So Will Kennedy, our tech in the hospital's orthopedic tech, will be helping us out in these videos, just showing you all step by step how to do each splint. So before we start, we're going to talk about everything you need to do before your splint and after your splint. So before your splint, you're going to need to make sure that you have, again, the right patient, the right extremity, all of that good stuff. And then you're also going to need to make sure that the extremity is clean and dry, that there's no open wounds or anything like that the doctor needs to be aware of. And then you need to do your pre-neurovascular checks on the patient. So PMS, cap refill, all of that good stuff. And then after your splinting process is finished, you need to do those same neurovascular checks. Pulses you might not be able to get to, but cap refill definitely. And then you'll need to tell the patient it might be warm for a little bit. You'll need the doctor or MP, whoever asked you to do the splint, to come look at it after you have completed the splint. You'll need to tell them not to get it wet, not to stick anything down into their splint, not to cut their splint off or change it until they have their follow-up appointment. And again, to tell anyone if they feel severe pain or numbness or tingling in that extremity. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the education department or the splint book or these videos. So happy splinting.
Hey, I'm Will. I'm the hospital's orthopedic department, and I'm going to be helping with our splint video. So first we're going to do what's called a posterior long leg splint, and we'll do one with stirrups, but I'll show you at that point whether or not you would have stirrups is physician's discretion. I'll show you what to do there. So first of all, we got Kelly here from the education department to help us. We're going to check pulses on her foot. Good.
Are they there?
They are. Pretty good. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to get our supplies ready. So I'm going to set up for the posterior long legs with stirrups. Now, all of the supplies can be found here in the room 9 in the orthopedic section. It's this whole shelf right here. All right, so for the posterior long legs, we're going to use the 6-inch soft roll. It's the longer of the two soft rolls. For the back of the leg, the posterior portion, we're going to use the 6-inch plaster. You're going to need 2 of them. And then for the stirrups, we use the 4-inch plaster. You're also going to need 2 of them. Of the stockinettes, there's 2 sizes. For legs, I use the longer one. For arms, I use the shorter one. Okay, so we've assessed pulse, motor, and sensory. Now we don't have the non-injured limb, but you would measure on the unaffected limb just because you don't want to be manipulating someone's very broken leg. So you're going to go from right under the toes here. You want to go extra high with the padding, so I want to go a little below the knee with my splint material. So I'm going to go right to the knee with my padding. Alright, now I have my piece measured out. I'm going to start rolling out my splinting material. I got a bucket of pretty warm water here. The hotter the water, the faster it's going to set. Don't go for really hot water. I'd max out at like room temperature just because beyond that you're going to be worried about some thermal burns. Now you can go a little heavier for the back of the leg, but I like to use 10 layers of plaster for everything. Dr. Hearn was saying there's some research on that as to the efficacy of strength versus thermal burns. So we're going to roll out our splinting material. Then I like to fold it over like this because then there's no sharp edge. So we got 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. See, you can roll it however you want, but I like to do it this way where you have the rolls facing each other and you can pull them out 2 layers at a time. Then you can cut it, but it rips pretty easy. So this is going to be our posterior portion. Now we're going to start on our stirrups. Same thing here, we're going to do 10 layers. These are going to get measured also on the unaffected extremity if we had access to that here. And then we're going to go about the same height. So let's do like here. We're going to do the same thing. There we go. So we got 4, 6, 8, and 10. Alright, so now we got our stirrups. I like to hang them over the bed rail.
I'm just going to cut right through here.
Alrighty, now we're going to start soft rolling. Like I said, we're going to use the 6-inch soft roll. We've already checked the pulse motor sensory. Cap refill is good. We're going to start rolling. So I'll go back over it here, but what's important when you're rolling is that you don't make it too tight. You don't want it to, it's not a pressure dressing, all right? It's just to protect the skin. And you want to really pad bony prominences. So for the leg here, you're really going to be worried about the ankle. The goal is to overlap 50% of the web roll with the previous layer. So like half, half, going all the way up. Awesome. And you want more or less 3 layers thick of web rolling on the leg. Like I said, it's good to pad these prominences here. You got the 2 processes on the ankle. So we're going to do an extra layer there. If it's an ankle fracture and they want it bulky, you can just keep wrapping here like 3 times what you would need. But that looks pretty good. Okay. All right. Now we're going to get started with our plaster. So time's going to be more or less of the essence. You're just going to submerge the whole sheet, get it nice and wet, and then you're going to start working the water out of it. If it has too much water in it, it's going to take a year to set, and no one has time for that.
Also, always remember that if you need someone to help hold the patient's leg, you can always bring a partner to these splints, especially for holding it up when you're putting and setting the plaster on, or an arm, whichever extremity you're doing. You can always bring a buddy in to kind of hold up that leg if you need.
Everyone's not as awesome as Kelly.
You're going to hold this part?
Yeah. Perfect. Length. Alrighty. Just do 1 roll, web roll to hold this on here before we go in with stirrups. At this point, if you weren't doing stirrups, you would be done with your plaster. Ooh. it's really important to make sure that no plaster is touching the skin. So on the back of the leg, if you have to fold the plaster down a little bit, that is perfectly fine. Just make sure that it is not touching the skin. Then I'm going to wrap it again after the stirrups here. So.
Okay.
All right. Now we'll start in with our stirrups. You want to be quick here because you need to work while the back of the leg still hasn't set.
And then at this point, Will, just correct me if I'm wrong, they could do the stockinette if they didn't need the stirrups.
Correct,
after this.
right.
Okay.
If you didn't need to go ahead, I would do maybe one more layer of the soft roll. But if you didn't need stirrups, then this would be a great time to be done. Okay, so stirrups are going to go right here. Try to make sure they're even. Alrighty. Get some more 6-inch soft roll. Alrighty. And like I said, it's important just to make sure that this is not a pressure dressing. So we're just looking for an overlap. We're looking to hold it, not squeeze it. Especially on someone with maybe a smaller leg with these stirrups, it's important to make sure that you don't create something that's circumferential. So you could use a 4-inch plaster for the back if you need to, but you just need to ensure that that plaster does not go all the way around the patient's leg. If their leg's swelling and it doesn't have time, or it doesn't have space to swell it properly, that could create pressure injuries. Now we're going to start forming it. Never form a splint with your fingers. Use your palms. Using your fingers could create ridges that could cause skin breakdown. On these ones, you really want to make sure you have a nice heel cup. Back piece. That back piece is starting to get hard. See, I'm using my palms to smooth it, never the fingertips.
And realistically, how long do you want to form your?
Just until you can feel that it's
okay.
dry is how I like to go. Like I said, the hotter the water, the quicker it'll dry. Like here, we're starting to get pretty dry, but I can still feel some motion in the stirrups. So yeah, now we're starting to set. If you don't wait until it's dry, then it's just going to expand back how it was. So like I said, on these long leg ones, making sure there's a heel cup, that's pretty important. That's why you make sure you have plenty of padding around that ankle. Yeah, and that looks to be set good. All right, now I think we are dry enough. We can start in with the stocking. So like I said, I used the longer stockinette for the legs. With the stockinette, you never want to roll it like this because you'll get it too tight. You want to roll it like this. That way, it just prevents you from making it a pressure dressing. I'm just dropping stuff today. Same with this, you want the overlap to be 50%. See, make sure you cover that heel. Just remember to avoid pulling the wrap while you're wrapping. Kind of think of it like a rolling. Alright. We're at the top. We'll start coming back down. Just finish the roll out. Now at this point you could tape it. I probably will because that is the recommended way. But you could also cut it down the end and tie it off. Two pieces of tape if you're going to tape it. If you're doing one in first care for someone that's going to get discharged, I would recommend just tying it because the tape will come off. So like Kelly was saying in the introduction, you want to just advise the patient that it's going to get warm. At the end here, I like to tuck my soft roll down. First of all, this makes sure that you don't have any plaster touching the skin. Second of all, it looks nice. So you want to just let the patient know that it's going to get hot, obviously, as it sets, and that there shouldn't be any pain. You want to recheck the pulse motor sensory. You feel me touching?
Mm-hmm.
Recheck cap refill. And like she said, it'll be hard to get to that pulse sometimes on the foot, but you want to advise the patient not to mess with it until their follow-up appointment, not to shower in it.
Yeah.
And then you want to have a physician or nurse look it over. Just make sure your work looks good. Let's see, how's that feel? Cool.
All right, and that's your posterior long leg splint.